We all see the same sun, and we all see the same moon, and we all feel the earth beneath our feet, and we all breathe the same air, and we all share the same world, and we're all more the same than we are different. So let's hold each other gently and teach each other softly and heal each other lovingly, and let's start giving. Oh, let's hold the mother gently and teach the children softly and heal our world completely, and let's start living.
Hi, and welcome to today's show. This is Celebration of Life Studio. My name is Deb Cross. I'm the producer. And the topic today is going to be how to overcome the victim consciousness that is prevalent in today's world. And I've always wanted to say this. You've heard it here first. Like they do on the regular TV stations. And I could maybe stand to be corrected, but I haven't heard people talk about the victim consciousness. I haven't heard people talk about the issues of codependency. I've heard a lot of talk and discussions about the horrific heroin epidemic that is prevalent in New Hampshire and in other places across the country. So today I'd like to focus on and have discussions about what is victim consciousness and how do you learn to become your own advocate. And I didn't go to school to learn this. Somehow, some way, maybe it's my faith in God and my determination to not be a victim, that I kind of have been able to be my own advocate and try to take very good care of myself. And over the years, I've acquired some skills, I believe, that can also assist others. And I want to share this story with you. I know that a lot of people, and myself included, though I've openly shared about my addiction, and March 11th, I'll have 37 years of continuous sobriety, and I'm very, very pleased with that. And and I'm not ashamed today to openly and vocally, share that I'm in recovery, because I'm taught in AA that you share your experience, strength, and hope, and knowing what's happening to the young people today, I am more determined to be more vocal. And sometimes people have a hard time with my personality, and a lawyer friend of mine in Rye, has termed the phrase that I'm the Michael Moore of Rye, because I like to make movies, I like to tell stories, and I really have zero tolerance for injustices. And I believe in the goodness of people, and I wholeheartedly believe that we need to speak up, and some of us need to be taught how to do that. And the labels and the stigma that have been put on recovering alcoholics, or not recovering alcoholics necessarily, but addicts in general, and it's not pretty. But I just want to talk a little bit about the disease of alcoholism, because I'm not hearing a lot about that. I'm hearing about solutions of we need treatment centers and we need this and we're going to do that, and and the blame thing and the victim consciousness comes in my mind when we're waiting for the doctors to do something by not prescribing so many prescription drugs to people who get addicted on them. We're blaming the system because we don't have treatment centers anymore, and we're waiting for people to love us and care enough about us to come up with the funding, and And, where can we go? What can we do? In total honesty, the way things are being shared on a national and a local level on the news and in the media and on social media is there's really doesn't feel like there's hope. I know a lot of good people are doing a lot of good things and putting and tremendous amount of time and energy and effort to try to solve these problems and help the addicts. And I know they're frustrated because their hands are tied, and I don't want to put words in their mouth, and that's not my job to do that. It's just an observation that I have is that we're sitting back and waiting, and it's like, well, I don't want to be a victim, and I'm really appealing today to people with a lot of sobriety, or people that maybe don't have a lot of sobriety, but maybe they've been around recovery for a long time or been around addictions for a long time. And, where would we be if those old timers, as they're called, shut the door on us and said, you know what, we're done. We did our job. It's time for the newcomers to take over, and, our tour duty is over. And that really is bothersome to me, and I've done it myself at meetings, and and I'm openly talking about meetings, and I'm openly saying, the word AA, and that's where I go. And the way I look at this with the anonymity is that, I've said this a number of times on my show, I am certainly not going to promote or condone TV cameras to come into an AA meeting. It is not my place to out anybody as being a member of AA. That's not what I'm talking about. What I am talking about is that if AA was this secret group, then, there wouldn't be AA meetings online. There wouldn't be, meetings where people could come in and anybody can come in. There's closed meetings, there's open meetings, there's specific topic meetings. So there isn't that you go into a meeting and you have to sign a waiver like you do at a job and saying, full disclosure, whatever happens here. It's a meeting where they say, what you hear here, stay here. Who you see here, let it be. How does it go? You hear here, let it stay here, something like. Well, that's part of it. But, like respect the people's anonymity, and I believe in that. But, if this was really this big secret, then they wouldn't be selling books in bookstores. They wouldn't be, showing all this stuff. And maybe I'm going to an extreme, but I think that things need to change. I'm not saying to change the meetings. I'm not saying that at all. The meetings work. AA works. The program works. The fellowship works. And a lot of treatment centers have come and gone since the 80s. Detoxes have come and gone. A lot of things that were in place when I sobered up have come and gone. And so, but AA and Al-Anon have stayed over the test of time, and they work. And I'm not hearing people, say, okay, go to an AA meeting. I know a lot of people in the program, courts are sending people to the program, to AA, and they've got slips of paper stating that the secretary has to sign that they've been here and stayed for the entire meeting because they're court appointed to attend X number of AA meetings. So, Sunday morning I got up and I was having self-talk. I wasn't hearing voices, but, excuse me, I was I was praying really hard, and I said, God, where do you want me today? I mean, that's part of my program, step 3. You turn your life and your will over to God. You do it every day, and that's what I try to do every day. And I had choices. I could either go to church, I could go to an AA meeting, I could go to try an Al-Anon meeting. I've been there in years. Or I could go and get acupuncture because I like doing that on Sunday, but mostly in the afternoon. And as I'm getting ready to leave, this voice inside of me said, go to an AA meeting. And I listened to that voice, and I did. And I get there, and I'm talking to a friend of mine, and, a young woman and her son came in, and we're talking to my friend. And she said, my son is trying to detox off heroin, and he's having a really hard time. My friend looked at me and said, Deb, do what you do best. Can you help them out? I didn't even know these people's names. I had no clue who they were, but I knew that that's 12-step work, and 12-step works. And I couldn't turn my back on this young couple. Not a couple, but the mother and son. So the meeting was being held at a local hospital, and so I said, well, let's go to the emergency room. So off we went. And we went in, and this kid has no insurance. He just lost his job because he was drinking and drugging. And so now he's, without insurance coverage. So, they did the intake, and the three of us were there. And, the doctor comes in and, excuse me, and, we're having a conversation, and, well, you don't have insurance. Well, he wants to detox. Well, geez, I'm really sorry, sir. We don't have a detox. I'm saying, what? You don't have a detox? No, they don't. They shut him down. I said, is there any detox in the city? No, there aren't. I said, this is unacceptable. Here is a young man who has just buried a lot of his friends from overdoses, and he's really scared, and he wants to detox. I'm really sorry, ma'am, we can't help you. I'm like, this is unacceptable, And so, he offered a solution, and, he said, I can prescribe these drugs that you can take. And I said, are they addictive? And he looked at me like, of course they're not. Like, why would I be giving an addictant? I'm thinking to myself, because doctors do that. That's how they prescribe. And these weren't addicted. They were going to help him with his withdrawals. And so off he goes, and they says, well, we'll send this social worker in. So we're sitting there, and this woman and I and her son were having a conversation. And I have not been around active heroin addicts for a very long time. And I'll tell you, it was pretty intense to see the reality of a mother and a son, and both of them crying, and both of them holding on to each other. That was pretty profound for me to see and experience. And I'm like, wow, what are we going to do with this young man? And his mother is so terrified that her son is going to die, like a lot of his friends have. So while we're waiting, so the social worker comes in, and she says, well, you've got to have other coping skills, and no, we can't really help you, but blah, 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 blah. And I'm looking, and so finally I just said, I've got 37 years of sobriety. His mother has 16. Let's have a different conversation here. She says, well, so she handed us some paperwork and said, try these places, because there isn't really a detox. So I'm thinking, what are we going to do? So we're having this conversation, and this young girl on the other side of the curtain comes over and says, I don't mean to intrude, but I want to share something with you. She says, I've lost a lot of my friends that have died from heroin. And she had her cell phone, and she said, here are some resources, and I just found these for you. See if this will help. And the three of us just burst out laughing, saying, how ludicrous can this be? This total stranger, who's a patient on the other side of this curtain, was more helpful than the staff at the hospital. And, so we're having this discussion, and I'm calling different places, and Portsmouth Hospital does not detox people on opiates and heroin. I said, you got to be kidding me. No, they don't. I said, this is outrageous. So Hampstead Hospital does detox people off heroin. Most detoxes, I guess, and don't quote me on this because I haven't done enough research, there aren't detoxes. If there are, they just do it for alcoholics. But Hampstead does. So I called them, and they says, well, he doesn't have insurance. Well, that'll be $4,200 out of pocket for 7 days. I said, is there a discount for self-pay? No, ma'am, these are the fees. And I'm like, wow. So we're sitting there, and it's like, wow, we were very angry and sad and frightened and going through an awful lot of emotions. Excuse me. And then all of a sudden, the doctor, the nurse, and the social worker came back into, well, it's not the room, but it's, behind the curtain, and gave us a solution, which was incredible. That's a miracle. In my opinion, that was God working in our lives. That was God answering prayers. And here are these three staff members. The doctor said to him, I call these drugstores. This is the cheapest place to buy these prescription drugs that I'm just, offering you. And he only, instead of giving him 30 days, he just made it so that he could fill out a prescription for maybe for a week so he could afford it. And then he handed him two cards for get a discount at Walmart. It's a pharmacy that was going to send it to. The social worker had some other suggestions. And then, the nurse said, I'd like to pray for you if that's okay with you. And then they started to get really real and say, we are so sorry. Our hands are tied. Insurances won't cover a detox. And we go through this every day. And I'm like this, and I looked at this young man and I said, as I said to you before, there are good people. These people didn't have to do what they just did. They did it because they're trying to help you, but their hands are tied, and I get that. So I had this thought this morning, and I thought, so what are we going to do? Are we going to continue to blame? And I was told Sunday that in the month of January in New Hampshire, 90 people died of an overdose. And I'm thinking, when there's an earthquake in a third world country, or there's a hurricane or tsunami or whatever, America will rally the troops and get Red Cross and all these people and all these agencies and $1 million, whatever it takes, and off they go. And when they get there and see these horrific conditions and see how these people are wounded and sick and damaged and bruised and all of that, they don't say, well, wait a minute, we gotta talk to the politicians and where are the hospitals? Well, they just got blown up or whatever happened. They do emergency triage. They make it work and they do it. And I'm thinking, then why can't we do something here? It is the same epidemic. It is an epidemic. And there's an urgency, and why are we waiting till the insurance companies will agree to do this or not agree? And maybe they won't. And in the interim, people are dying. And that's just unacceptable to me. So I'm thinking, to get back to the victim consciousness, is then why are we waiting? Why can't we pool our resources together? Why can't we insist or just go to the governor or go to the task force or whoever, your state rep, your state senator, and say, all right, how, there's an abandoned building, or just how do we get the detoxes in place? I don't say any of this is easy, and it's not an easy solution, but I think we can simplify it. In AA, there's an expression, first things first. First things first. And for me, that first things first is detox these young people. Detox them. Put your energy, effort, time, money, and resources together and figure out a way to find some place. I'm sure there's doctors in recovery. I'm sure there's people, because these people care. These people that work in these agencies and hospitals and organizations, they care about us. So let's start another conversation. Let's try something different. Is it a permanent fix? No. But if it could save lives and get them detoxed, then send them to AA, send them to NA. That fellowship works. If, like I said before, if I was an active now and hearing all this media, I don't think I would sober up. I don't hear hope. And that's what kept me going in my sobriety. I had to find the hope somehow. And that's how I became my own advocate. So, some of you, I've spoken before that I did testify in Concord at the governor's task force, and I was speaking specifically about the benefits of homeopathic remedy. And I still believe, my simple solution to this epidemic is get some detoxes opened quickly, send them to AA, and to deal with the underlying causes of the trauma, seriously think about incorporating and using homeopathic remedies as a viable alternative to help addicts put their body back in balance, because it works. And homeopathy has been in existence for 200 years, over 200 years. And I'm not going to get into the discussion of why the AMA or, don't want to promote this. That's not the discussion for today. But, when I was in Concord testifying, it became very clear to me about how rampant the disease, and it is a disease of codependency. So, and how, the family members, or how do we cope? And like this story of the woman and son that I shared a few minutes ago, the mother is incredibly traumatized because she doesn't know what to do to how to help her son. So I just want to read what the symptoms of codependency are. And I want to start having that conversation, because when I sobered up, there was a movement. I know there's movements today, and there's a lot of people doing some wonderful things and, got some really great ideas. But back in my day, there was a lot of talk about adult child of alcoholics. There were a lot of meetings. There's a lot of therapists treating people. And there was a lot of talk and discussion about codependency. So, I'm thinking if we can start to address these other issues as well, would it be great if we could get, you know, you know, people like everybody, every human being has been impacted directly or indirectly from alcohol and codependency. And codependency is about being around people that are addicts, and so I'm going to take a few minutes and read these symptoms because I think we need to start really looking at this because it's if I can help to make people aware, then the solutions for more permanent solutions for recovery or the addicts of the heroin epidemic might be more prevalent today. So the symptoms of codependency. The term codependency has been around for almost 4 decades. Although it originally applied to spouses of alcoholics, first called co-alcoholics, research revealed that the characteristics of codependence were much more prevalent in the general population than had been imagined. In fact, they found that if you were raised in a dysfunctional family or had an ill parent, it's likely that you're codependent. Don't feel bad if that includes you. Most families in America are dysfunctional, so that covers just about everybody. You're in the majority. They also found that codependent symptoms got worse if untreated, but the good news was that they were reversible. Here's a list of symptoms. You needn't have all of them to qualify as codependent. Shame and low self-esteem. Not feeling that you're good enough or comparing yourself to others is a sign of low self-esteem. The tricky thing about self-esteem is that some people think highly of themselves, but it's only a camouflage for really feeling unlovable or inadequate. Underneath, usually hidden from consciousness, are feelings of shame. Some of the things that go along with low self-esteem are guilt feelings and perfectionism. If everything is perfect, you don't feel bad about yourself. People-pleasing. It's fine to want to please someone you care about, but codependents usually don't think they have a choice. Saying no causes them anxiety. Some codependents have a hard time saying no to anyone. They go out of their way and sacrifice their own needs to accommodate other people. Poor boundaries. Boundaries are sort of an imaginary line between you and others. It divides up what's yours and what's somebody else's. And that applies not only to your body, money, and belongings, but also to your feelings, thoughts, and needs. That's especially where codependents get into trouble. They have blurry or weak boundaries between themselves and others. They feel responsible for other people's feelings and problems or blame their own on someone else. Some codependents have rigid boundaries. They are focused, they are closed off and withdrawn, making it hard for people to get close to them. Sometimes people flip back and forth between having weak boundaries and rigid ones. Reactivity. A consequence of poor boundaries is that you react to everyone's thoughts and feelings. If someone says something you disagree with, you either believe it or become defensive. You absorb their words because there is no boundary. With a boundary, you'd realize it was just their opinion and not a reflection of you, and you don't feel threatened by disagreements. Caretaking. Another effect of poor boundaries is that if someone else has a problem, you want to help them to the point that you feel guilty if you don't and give up yourself in the process. It's natural to feel empathy and sympathy for someone, but codependents start putting other people ahead of themselves. In fact, they need to help and might feel rejected if another person doesn't want help. Moreover, they keep trying to help and fix the other person, even when that person clearly isn't taking their advice. For some codependents, their self-worth is dependent on being needed. Control. Control helps. I'm not sure I'm going to have time to read all of these. Control helps codependents feel safe and secure. Everyone needs some control over events in their life. You wouldn't want to live in constant uncertainty and chaos, but for codependents, control limits their ability to take risks and share their feelings. I'm going to shorten this up. Dysfunctional communication. Codependents have trouble when it comes to communicating their thoughts, feelings, and needs. Obsessions. Codependents have a tendency to spend their time thinking about other people or relationships. Often they try to decipher what someone else is thinking or feeling and why. Dependency. Codependents need other people to like them to feel okay about themselves, and they're afraid of being rejected or abandoned despite the fact that they can function on their own. Denial. One of the problems people face in getting help for codependency is that they're in denial about it, meaning that they don't face their problem. Problems with intimacy. By this, I'm not referring to sex, although sexual dysfunction is often a reflection of an intimacy problem. I'm talking about being open and close to someone in an intimate relationship. Painful emotions. Codependency creates stress and leads to painful emotions. Shame and low self-esteem create anxiety and fear about being judged, being rejected or abandoned, making mistakes, being a failure, being close and feeling trapped, being alone. All of the symptoms lead to feelings of anger and resentment, depression, hopelessness, and despair. When the feelings are too much, you can feel numb. There is help for recovery and change. The first step is getting guidance and support. These symptoms are deeply ingrained habits and difficult to identify and change on your own. You know, I believe, and I want to end this show with that I believe that we really need to start talking a lot more, not necessarily a lot more, but having more discussions about the disease of codependency. You know, because there's a lot of people that are that might not be open. I mean, like I said earlier, everybody's impacted. And everybody has their own baggage and everybody has their own wounds, and none of us are going to get out of this life by not being impacted by the ramifications of the disease of alcoholism and untreated codependency. You know, I believe that I believe that as a community, especially people in recovery, we need to come together. We need to start to have discussions and conversations about, you know, what can we do and how can we give back and how can we pay this forward. You know, going to the hospital and at the emergency room on Sunday really had a tremendous impact on me, and it made it very real. And so I just hope that people can take this disease off of a moral issue, because the disease makes you do a lot of things that you normally wouldn't do, and that's the disease. So just changing the language and the verbiage and all of that, in my opinion, isn't it. You know, we are wonderful people. You know, together we can do this, and I encourage everybody to make a decision to try to be part of the solution.